This is the Montana Outdoor Podcast, brought to you in part by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to rmtte.com for more information. And by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. Now, get ready for more fascinating topics and the most interesting people you will ever find in Montana's great outdoors. We offer new podcasts most every Saturday. You can get a link to these podcasts by going to our website, montanooutdoor.com, or by going to our Facebook page, or just send an email to downrigger@montanooutdoor.com and say send a link to my email. It's that simple. Now let's head out with your host, Downrigger Dale, and see what's going on in Montana's great outdoors.
Thank you very much, Manny. And as Manny just said, I am Downrigger Dale with the Montana Outdoor Podcast. I love it that all of you are here. Nowadays, of course, we track everything, don't we? We track all kinds of statistics. And what's amazed me is just how huge this thing has grown, and it just keeps growing. So thank you all so much for sharing this podcast, getting your friends and family involved. Very special shout out to our active military around the world. It is a true honor that so many of you spend your time off protecting our great country and others around the world by listening to this podcast. As I always say, I hope this brings a little bit of home back to you. Now, if you've been listening to this for a while, we've been into this series about discovering more of Montana. I've been saying for a lot of you, we get into this rut where we know this body of water just perfectly, for example, for fishermen. So we just keep going out there because I know where to find the fish. I only have a couple days during the week to do this and so on. But you miss out on this whole great state. So I thought I would go straight to the source this time. And I mean right to the source, and that is Mitch Staley is the the marketing director there for the Department of Commerce. Is that your title there, Mitch?
Yeah, Chief Marketing Officer, but that's pretty much it.
He and his staff have a huge responsibility, and that's presenting Montana to the rest of the world, but also presenting Montana to all those that live here. You guys have heard me say that the website visitmt.com quite a bit. Now, that was before they became a sponsor. I would bring them up because I actually use that website a lot to help get me where I want to go and researching areas and that to bring to all of you. Mitch, you guys have been a very useful tool for me for quite some time now. And it's been wonderful. You're going to learn a lot about this website and a lot about what Mitch and his people do to really help you get around the state. So one of the things you can do right now, if you're sitting with your computer, obviously not if you're driving, but you can go to visitmt.com. As Mitch and I go along, we're going to talk about that website, and you can just kind of follow along if you want and just, I'll tell you what we're looking at, and you can click on it and that, or just sit back and relax. I'm going to have a link to visitmt.com in the podcast description. You can click on there and you can spend a lot of time in there. You're going to be amazed how this thing works. It's really cool. So, Mitch, before we get into all that, tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to get involved with the Montana Department of Commerce and this greatest project, visitmt.com.
Yeah, thanks, Dale. I'm happy to be here with you and to talk about the great work that the team at the Department of Commerce is doing to really share Montana and make sure that Montanans, residents, use the resources that have been developed to plan their weekend getaways, their vacations here in Montana, and get to see something different that they haven't seen. So really grateful to have the opportunity to talk with you about that and share that with your listeners, and welcome everyone to do exactly how you invited them to do it. Go to visitmt.com and check this out. Of course, it's optimized for any device you're looking at it on. Don't do it while you're driving, but it does work on your phone really well, and it's intended to be a pocket guide, a resource to you, however you want it to be. There's lots of different ways, and we'll go into that a little bit more here on this episode. But I'm a Montanan. I lived in Montana 34 years of my life. I happen to be 34 years old, so I've been here my whole life. Raised in Dillon, Southwest Montana. Very familiar with the outdoors, of course. That's why we live here, is for that great quality of life and the ability to, after work, jump on my dirt bike and ride up and ride into, you can get into 6 alpine lakes that all have roads, trails that are open to go access those and do that, really taking off from town in Dillon and doing that after work. So between 5 and 10 o'clock at night, that's something that we get to do that's like a full day's event for a lot of people. And I think that's mind blowing for a lot of people. I've served on a lot of different volunteer boards here locally, the Bannock Association. I was president of that board for a while, and the Beaverhead County Chamber of Commerce, president of that for a while. And so just kind of seen a lot of the great work that gets done by volunteers across the state. There are some volunteer groups, there are some that are, this is their jobs that they do, is helping highlight the great things that are happening every day in Montana. And that's really the work that the Department of Commerce is doing. And the reason why we promote the state the way we do is to have an impact in communities, to have travelers, when they come to our state, really produce an impact that plays into our economies and the health of our small businesses, the main streets in Montana that feel the impact of visitors every summer for sure, but all year round, definitely.
Well, yeah, and Mitch, what I really like about what I've learned about visitmt.com is it really is a incredible tool for kind of going off the beaten path a little bit and finding some of these communities and areas that, I mean, as a Montanan, I'm quite a bit older than you. I'm in the 60s area here, but going on 12 still.
Yeah, sure.
And what I'm finding places that I didn't even know about, and I'm pretty much a lifelong Montanan. I spent some time overseas and around for a while, but moved back here because once you're a Montanan, you just, there is no better place in my opinion. But that is really interesting. Now, was that something that you guys, kind of made an effort to focus on, or is that just how it came together? Because, like I said, I'm finding things on here that are just fascinating.
I am too, honestly, Dale. Even though same lifetime Montanan, I grew up, like I said, here in Beaverhead County, where we have the picturesque Montana that you've seen for really the last 20, 30 years. The mountains, the meadows, the streams. You've seen that. I mean, that's primarily what a lot of people think about when they think about Montana is mountains and meadows and wildlife. Wildlife is one of the top reasons we know from data why people come to Montana, is to see wildlife. We take that so for granted, right? Because our drive to work in the morning, we're going to see antelope, deer. If you're lucky, an elk. A lot of times you might even see a moose. We really do take that for granted. And that's a part of why we live here.
Yeah.
And, but again, that perspective, I'll speak anecdotally. I grew up here in Southwest Montana where I have the mountains. I really have it's like going to Yellowstone without going to Yellowstone, living in Beaverhead County. It's all here. But I had no idea really what was broader than that. Central, eastern Montana, southeast corner of the state, how beautiful the landscape is in these areas and the opportunities that I think really unlike anyone else in the world has, that residents, the people that like us that live here already have to go explore these places, these lesser known places. You'll hear us call it the undervisited and rural parts of the state.
Yeah.
Those are things that they're magical. Makoshika State Park. I think a lot of people that have lived here have heard of Makoshika. I challenge if they've gone there. And if you haven't, you need to. I got to go twice last summer, once personally on vacation with my family before I had any context that we would be doing that for some of our promotional works for the department. I got to do that with pulling a camper across from Dillon to Makoshika, so out into Glendive, and all the stops along the way. We like to frame it as Montana really is just a big road trip and all the stops along the way.
Yeah.
And there's so much to explore on your way out to something, to a park like Makoshika. Sluicebox State Park is out there in central Montana. A lot of folks wouldn't know what that is until you look it up. And I think we get so stuck in our rut here, which isn't a bad thing. I love my rut. My rut here is Dillon, Beaver County. It's beautiful. I could stay here my whole life and be content, right? Go camping and love it. But we get that frame of reference, and as residents, I think we forget of all the amazing things that are out there in our state. You don't need to even jump on a plane to go see some pretty incredible things that are right in your own backyard. You can do that, unlike an out-of-state visitor, that they have to think a little bit harder about planning a trip to Montana. They might have to book a flight. They've got to think about lodging, which we do too, being residents. We got to think about where we're staying. And that's an important piece of it. But we could think about this like on a Wednesday night, sitting around the table with our families. And on a Wednesday night, you could jump on visitmt.com and check out. Right now, we're running 4 specific itineraries. And these are just inspirational, right? You can look at anything going on in the state of Montana and build your own itinerary. And you can use visitmt.com to inspire that too. But we have 4 that we've really developed there's a 3-day trip, there's a 5-day trip, there's a 4-day trip. There's another 4-day trip. So there's 4 in total that we've got listed right now. You can download them, but that take you on a journey kind of at multiple starting places. So one of them you'd start in Helena, one of them you'd start in Three Forks. Obviously, if you're coming from somewhere that's not Helena or Three Forks, fill in the blanks of how you get there or start your road trip to do this, but follow it along. And you can do that, like I said, starting on a Wednesday. If you didn't think about it at all, but you started thinking about your trip on Wednesday, by Thursday morning, Thursday night, you could have your whole, if you have a 3-day weekend or even a 2-day weekend, you have your weekend planned, and you can do that in Montana. And it's much less intimidating to do that, to just go drive out and see Sluice Box State Park, or go drive out, see Makoshika. Some of these might even be day trips for you versus for others that come and visit these locations. It's like they got to plan it 6 months in advance. They got to think really hard about it. We're in such a unique place as residents to go explore these things that we can do it. Basically it's in our back pocket. Why aren't we doing it? And so from the department standpoint, we're trying to make sure that Montanans have this information just as much as someone who comes from out of state, but that Montanans have the same information that, boy, I didn't know that was out there. I didn't know there were 2 dinosaur museums in Glendive. Did you know there's 2? It's not just one. Like, that's unique in and of itself. There are 2. And also you can just drive down the street and get to Makoshika all in one day. It's incredible, the opportunity that we have.
Yeah. And to show you, those of you that are following along or want to get on the website after the podcast and look at it, what we're talking about here, when you first go to visitmt.com, you see the main page, and just as you look below, it says take your pick, and it has trip ideas. You just click on that. Now there up it comes, and you can see just what Mitch was talking about here of, for example, it says 3 days in central Montana, or 5 days in eastern Montana, 4 days in northwest Montana. So in other words, that's what he's talking about. What I like to call this page, Mitch, is I call it the ultimate cure for the, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Because you go right to there, and there it's all laid out for you. So if you have that, which in my big family, of course, all my kids are grown in that, but we still take trips together and do things. That happens a lot. I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. Where should we go? Well, there it is. So it gives you some really good ideas. And again, what Mitch is pointing out is, I guarantee you, when you go to this site and you start clicking on this, you're going to go, well, I didn't know that. Really? And that's what's so cool about this site. So those of you, and of course we have zillions and zillions of you outside of Montana, you're going to love this, because it's really going to give you some of those, like Mitch was saying, maybe even kind of some day trip excursions and that for you. But for those of us that live right here, there's just a lot of neat ways to do this. In fact, as we go along, I'm actually going to do an example of how you could use this in conjunction with the podcast you're listening to, so that if you take the whole family, maybe your dad's going fishing, but now mom and sister can click on here and find out all the things to do right around where dad's fishing. So Anyway,
Right.
that's just one of the kind of the tip of the iceberg here. So let's talk a little bit, Mitch, if you don't mind. Here, I'm just going to go along here. If we look at this main page that we go on to, and we talked about the trip ideas. Next to that, there's 4 other squares. There's events, outdoor adventure, bring the fam, RV, and camping. Can you talk a bit about those and tell us where those, give us an idea where those take us and why we might want to click on those?
Yeah, it's intended to basically any navigation point at visitmt.com really is intended to give you the best way that you want in your context, how you travel. If you have an RV or a camper, you have ways, and we're helping guide that. In fact, you'll see a lot of the itineraries, the creative, the videos you're watching as you're bouncing around visitmt.com. You'll see one of the families actually pulling a camper.
Yep.
And they did that for a whole week, going around central and eastern and southeast Montana. And then you'll see people that don't do that. They want to stay in hotels, which is awesome. We want that. That's really a great impact to the communities that folks stay in, especially again in that rural and undervisited areas. Those areas of the state, massively important to those economies, those local economies, to have visitation there. And so anywhere you click on the page, you mentioned the events page. I think that's important to call out. I'll say this, just a quick short story, because the work that goes into putting up a site like visitmt.com and the ads, the creative that you see to promote these itineraries in this website, you can go literally to any small town. And I say literally, but because it is literal, you can go to any small town in Montana almost any weekend of the summer, especially the summer, if not all year round.
Yeah.
And you can encounter, there's a rodeo, there's a fair, there's at least going to be a farmer's market on Saturday morning. There's a concert, there's some kind of a street festival going on. It's every weekend in Montana. And to illustrate that, when we were out doing some of the promotional work that we did, and you'll see again in the videos, if you go to visitmt.com, you'll see what I'm talking about. When we were getting some of the footage that we have out this summer, it was fascinating. We were in Fort Benton, and in Fort Benton there was a street fair going on. From Fort Benton, we went to Lewistown. As we rolled into Lewistown, we didn't know this going into it. I'm sure it was massively advertised, and I'm for whatever reason it just wasn't on my radar. But we rolled into Lewistown, and sure enough, there's an amazing carnival set up. There's a rodeo going on. And you just pay to get in. It was one fee to get in, and it was one of the best carnivals I've seen in a long time. And then the rodeo was a full rodeo. Lots of people want to go to a rodeo.
Sure.
And then the next night we rolled in, and we knew about this, but the Red Ants Pants Festival was going on in White Sulphur Springs. That's 3 days that we went to 3 different communities, and there's more that we went to part of that trip, but just a view of that trip. And in every single town we encountered, there was something going on. So the events page on visitmt.com is intended to let you know what's going on. Now, we try our best to get every event that, is at the level of visitors from either out of your town or out of state to see that, hey, that's going on. And rodeo is one of the major events. We do our best to get as many of those on there as we can. Of course, we're going to miss some, but the beautiful part about visitmt.com is it's user generated. So we rely on your local chamber of commerce, what we call a convention visitor bureau, a CVB. Mm-hmm. And there's also tourism regions. Montana is broken up into tourism regions that represent, like, I'm in Southwest Montana, so my region is called Southwest Montana. The Fort Peck area's region is called Missouri River Country. There's Glacier Country, which is really central Montana, and as you can imagine, includes Glacier. And so these are where we really look for some of that user-generated content around events to be uploaded onto visitmt.com. So it's not just us at the Department of Commerce putting the events out there. we really do ask our partners and folks on the ground in the communities to use this as a tool to put their events on there. And you can call, and if you need help how to do that, you can call us anytime and we'll get you set up and kind of help you understand how to get events on to visitmt.com so that your community is represented there. It's very comprehensive right now, but again, we try to get them all. We're not going to get them all. But if you do see something that you feel like should be up there, let us know, and we'll do our best to help you get it on there, or we'll try to do it ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and just to give you a quick example, folks, so I click on that little square that says events. Boom. Now it says showing 78 results right there, but you can then dig in, customize it a little. If you look over to the left, you can put your start date, your end date. You can click where it says cities with events. Here's all the cities. Now you can click on that where you can really then zero in on where you're going to go and what events might be taking place there. And you can even further customize it by clicking on event type. Now it lists all these different types of events, so you can search that way. So again, it gives you all this great stuff. Now, the really cool thing here is, just as you were talking there, Mitch, that, you pull into Lewistown and wow, I didn't know this was going on. Here's the great thing about Montana. Speaking of, sometimes we take our great state for granted. Everybody in these small towns, the great thing about the small towns in Montana is every person that you bump into that lives there, they know everything about their small town, and they're really happy you're there and are really happy to tell you and answer any question. So it's not like you got to go find some office of whatever. Everybody knows. And that's what I love so much about going to these little out of the way places, because you're going to get just a personal information and tour from the people that live there. And I really think that's what makes our state so unique, is the people are so friendly. And I mean, when they say good afternoon, they actually mean it.
Yeah.
And so I know that really strikes people that, maybe come from a major city around the United States, but it hits a lot of us too that, are maybe in some of the larger cities in Montana. When you get out and meet these folks, you're going to learn all about that event or festival or that right from the people that are right there in front of you. And they're more than happy to tell you about it.
Yeah, and often that event is the best. They look forward to it all year.
Yeah,
12 months of the year. As soon as the event's over, they're getting ready for that event the next year. They're already starting, on planning next year's version of the event. And so you're right that the reason why Montana is so great really is because of the people that live here, because of Montanans. They create the community culture. They create the events. It's tireless. Countless hours of blood, sweat, sacrifice that goes into putting on a rodeo or a fair or a powwow, or you name it, a street festival, farmers markets. The organizers of these types of events are really, they're dedicated people, and you're going to find them in every corner, because it takes a committee to do most of these things.
Yeah.
So there's multiples of those people in every town in Montana, and that includes the bigger cities and the smaller. It takes a lot of people to do the things that we're talking about to put these events on. I do want to just point out too that there are dedicated visitor centers in most communities that can provide guidance if you're more comfortable going somewhere, that they're ready to answer your questions. But like you said, you can also ask people, if you're just at the gas station, just ask a question. I think you're right. People there they're happy you're there, because the reason they put these events on primarily is because they know it brings people to their community, and they love sharing that, but also it brings some revenue to their community and and the small businesses. And that's really what we focus on at the Department of Commerce is providing that economic impact to the community. So we love the events. We love the culture. We love all of the great things that we're talking about. At the end of the day, we do these things because of the economic impacts it provides to our community, for small businesses, for the workers in the state that are employed by these small businesses. That's at the end of the day why we're doing what we're doing. But to get there, you get to really explore and discover a lot of unique things about the state. And again, I go back to the reason it is the way it is because of the people who live here, who have made these communities so special and unique, and something that you need to go see.
Well, Mitch, we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, I want to get into one of my favorite parts of the site, outdoor adventure. And this will be a great example of how you can use this as a great tool when you're listening to something like this podcast. So we'll talk about that right after this. Hey, gang, thanks for supporting and listening to this podcast. I can't tell you how much it means to all of us that you're here. And speaking of support, we would not be able to do this podcast at all if it weren't for sponsors like Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. It is truly an honor to have Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer on our team. You know, if you own a trailer, you ought to think about adding them to your team too. They can service your trailer, and when it comes to repairing trailers, well, you won't find anyone better at it than Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. If it's parts you need to do your own service and repairs, well, they are the place for that. Another thing you may not know about Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer is they install all kinds of accessories for the truck that pulls your trailer. Whether it's just the necessary items to help your truck get the trailer down the road perfectly, or all those gadgets and bells and whistles to dress your truck up a bit and, well, make it your unique style. And here's the best part. The folks that do all those repairs and installations are real technicians. They do things the right way and do it to such a degree of precision and reliability that you can roll down the road with confidence. Whether you need your trailer bearings packed, the whole thing rewired, or the right fifth wheel, or any kind of hitch installed, you're going to know that your trailer is ready to haul what you want worry-free. No matter if it's getting you and your four-legged coworker to the next rodeo or job, or just hauling a load to the dump, or getting the boat and RV to your favorite fishing hole, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer has you covered. And of course, if you need a new trailer, they can set you up with a brand new Diamond C gooseneck equipment, dump trailer, or whatever else you need to haul wherever you are going worry-free. Happy and looking good, too. Heck, they even carry an amazing line of CM truck beds that'll make your rig look and work like new. It's what they do at Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. They're in Missoula, or you can find them on the web at rmtte.com. That's rmtte.com. Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. Go see them. In Montana, discover a land where adventure roams free. Explore small towns where every corner tells a story and every greeting comes with a smile. Saddle up for breathtaking horseback rides or catch a fish in a crystal clear lake. Spend your evening sharing stories around a campfire under a starlit sky. That's how you Montana. Plan your trip at visitmt.com. That's visitmt.com. And we are back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast. My guest is Mitch Staley. He is with the Montana Department of Commerce. But what we're really focusing on today is this great website called visitmt.com. And Mitch, one of the things I want to get into, because this really kind of demonstrates how neat this website can be to really allow someone to get around. So let's say I am talking about, in fact, there will be a podcast coming up here on the Thompson Chain of Lakes. So if I click on Outdoor Adventure, which, again, right when you're on the main page, when you go to visitmt.com, you see this take your pick, and you've got trip ideas, events. To the right of that's outdoor adventure. Then below is bring the fam and RV and camping. So if I click on outdoor adventure, now we get into all these different things that you can explore and do, but they break it down to give you a little idea of, okay, you'll see here it says hiking and backpacking or bicycling, horseback riding, water recreation, boom, one of my favorites, fishing. So if I click on fishing, Now, this is going to give me all kinds of great ideas and things to help me get the most out of where I'm at and that. So it's going to talk about different tackle shops, different outfitters, fishing guides, on and on and on. It gives you all this stuff. So again, if I'm talking about the Thompson Chain of Lakes, we can go up to the map, zero in on that part of it, go here, and now we're going to find out the services and the things around that area that you can get. So now when I say, hey, hire a guide, that's going to help you find out how you can go after some of the fish over in that lake or in that stream. There they are. So really, really great idea. Now, how do these businesses get on here, Mitch? Is this something that they just contact you guys and say, hey, I'd like to promote, for example, one that a lot of you we interviewed here not long ago was Matt from MoFish Charters. I'm looking at MoFish Charters right here. So how do they come on there?
Yeah, there's a couple ways. The businesses can do this themselves, and that's important if they have the staff and the ability to do that. It's good for that to happen that way because they can update the pictures and make sure their information is always up to date. Because they know that information the best. We try to also make sure those regions or the local chambers of commerce are set up to also upload and add their business listings for their community. They know them way better than we do at the state level. And so there's a couple ways to do it. Businesses can do it directly. You can contact your chamber or your Convention Visitor Bureau. Again, that's a CVB representing travel in your area. And you can also reach out to us directly. There's a contact information. There's a web form you can submit to ask for some time to have one of our teammates give you a call and just chat through how you could get set up to do this yourself. So there's a few different ways to get your business listed here. And there's not just outfitters, there's a lot of different types of businesses, same as events and activities. You're talking about fishing because I know that's your passion. There's a lot of different types of activities in the state, and depending on the season too, it's important. Like winter is just around the corner, right? It's going to be here before we blink.
Right.
I'm probably really unpopular because I just said that, but it's true. And
it's a fact of life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to happen. I hope it happens in a big way too, right? We could use it. So, but in the winter, it's the same concept. You come on here, you can find winter activities like ski joring, ski hills, ice skating. We're hoping to have something around like actual sledding in a sled. So not snowmobile sledding, but sledding in a sled. Because a lot of people, that's a really attainable activity that, again, we take for granted. When we were kids, or if you have kids now, you can just grab your sled out of the garage and go find a little hill somewhere on the side of town. Or if you want to, you can go out to the mountains and do a full day sledding trip. A lot of people don't have that. And so we're trying to explore like easier ways for people to experience Montana. And again, residents are in that same category. We want residents enjoying where they live just as much as anyone.
Sure.
And so that's really the spirit behind this is you can find any activity, nearly any type of business listing. And again, those activities, the events, the business listings, really our model is that they come from the source, so the business or the event planner themselves, but there's a couple other ways to get it done if that's not possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this all kind of centers around, and I love this saying of how you Montana. And you folks have heard me say that as well on this podcast is how do you Montana? Well, it's more than a saying. I mean, it actually is a thing that we do. So I don't know who came up with that in your organization or that, but I just love it. So on the main page, if you scroll down a little bit, it says right here, how will you Montana? Now you can click on start planning, getting to Montana, all different regions, leave no trace, travel alerts, the place where you can find Montana guidebooks. Again, just a great, useful tool, whether you live right here in the great state of Montana, or let's say I'm listening from Denver. Hello, Denver. We have a lot of you that listen here. This gives you a great way to plan your trip in so many different areas. And what I'll guarantee you, when you get on this site, what's going to happen is you're going to find the area that kind of appeals to you as far as the way you want to plan. And again, I don't know who you guys used or if it was you, Mitch, or that laid this website out, but it is super user friendly. So for me, I'm kind of a map guy. Maybe I'm showing my age, but I'm a map guy. Well, you can plan by clicking on the map and going that route. So it really does give you a lot of different ways to plan your trip the way you like to plan. So I think that's important. I have not seen many sites that are this user-friendly and kind of allow you to gravitate to, the way you do it. How did you guys come up with all this? I mean, this is really well thought out.
And I definitely can't take credit. I did not build the website. We have an incredible team of people at the Department of Commerce that help build out the website. We have some partners that help us with this too. And so it's a team for sure that puts all of this together, and lots of testing, right?
Yeah.
Years of experience in testing and understanding how do people want to get this information. And like you said, there's a couple different ways to get all the information. If you're a map person, I kind of am with you. I want to see where I'm at and plan it from there. You can do it with a map. If you're a list view person where you just want a bunch of stuff listed out for you and you can read it and digest it, you can get it that way. If you're more visual inspired, but not a map person, there's pictures and video. There's a lot of different ways to get to the information to help plan your weekend or your week. And so there's a lot of heart, blood, sweat, tears that go into making this experience what it is. And it's ongoing. I think if you continue to check back at visitmt.com over the next year, you're going to see changes here. And because you never really rest on it. You always take it to the next level. You always find what's the next best way to engage people and get them exploring some of the areas that we're hoping people will discover. And so there's lots of different ways. So that's going to evolve. It will always improve and get better. And so that's How You Montana campaign. You mentioned that. That's currently our campaign. It started last year, and we don't often talk about the campaign because it's not really important to talk about the nuts and bolts about a campaign, but you brought it up, and really that is a good campaign, Mark, because it's trying to make sure that no matter who you are, no matter what your background is, if you like to ride dirt bikes, you can do that in Montana. That's how a lot of people do Montana. If you ride bicycles, you can do that here. That's how a lot of people in Montana. If you like to fish or hunt or hike, any of these activities, that's How You Montana. You don't have to only think, well, they only put out mountain biking, and I like to ride dirt bikes. You can think about every way to Montana, and everybody has something to do here. And that's really important to us. So we're hoping that that's coming across well, and how we're presenting the information and making sure people have access to any way you do Montana. If you're going to put that sticker on your water bottle or on your bumper, that everybody likes it. Everybody wants that sticker, not just one type of visitor or one type of activity enthusiast. Everybody has a way to Montana.
Right, exactly. And for some of you that really love social media, well, if you scroll down just a little ways down on the main page, again, we're back on that main page, it'll say social. Now you can just click on any of those squares and pictures, and there you go. And now it'll talk about what that picture's from, where it was, and all that. So another way to do it. So again, think about when you're planning this, whether you're just one of those, as I said earlier, I don't know, what do you want to do? Or you're one of these people that go, man, I am all about camping, and I mean, I'm into the tent camping. I like to put it on the ground, sleep on the ground. That's what I do. Well, you can click on camping, and now it's going to take you all around and again, just basically explain, okay, if the way you Montana is camping in tents around the state, there you go. So I just don't see I guess you guys will find ways to make it better, but right now I'm telling you, this thing is really well done, and a lot of fun to spend time on. So, I hope that everybody's going to take some time and look at that and see. Now, we're going to take one more quick break, and then when we come back, I want you to talk a bit about the growth in Montana as far as how I think it was really COVID that kind of spurred this unbelievable growth in discovering Montana. And I want you to talk a little bit about that. I got hit with so many emails of people going, I can't find a campground. I can't do this. And so, again, I don't know if this spurred out of it, but we'll talk about that when we come back right after this. I mentioned it before, and I'll say it again. It means a great deal to everyone that works on this podcast to have so many of you listening each week. Thank you all so very much. Another huge thank you needs to also go out to my friends at Superior Hardwoods of Montana. Without their support, we simply would not have a podcast. Just like us, you can depend on Superior Hardwoods of Montana, especially when you're ready to turn the place you live into your home. Now, what do I mean? Well, the place you live is not really your home until it reflects who you are. One of the best ways to do that is to go see my friends at Superior Hardwoods of Montana. For example, they have some incredible antique redwood reclaimed from a Marcus Daly water plume built back in 1917, running from Georgetown Lake to the Phillipsburg Mines. They have many other reclaimed options to choose from, as well as like corral board, antique oak, granary lumber, barn siding that is beautifully aged from natural weathering. That could be perfect for your home's soffit, siding, or paneling on an accent wall. They also have antique hand-hewn beams and saw-cut timbers that in a way is a tribute to our American history and to your home. Superior Hardwoods is also the place to find the perfect wood to create the ultimate outdoor space, like that incredible deck you've always wanted. Yeah, Superior Hardwoods of Montana is for sure your decking headquarters. Not only do they have a variety of exotic hardwood decking options, but they also have domestic classic traditional cedar. And the best part of that is they are offering exclusive pricing on gorgeous high-quality cedar decking right now. There are lots of benefits to cedar decking. It is resistant to temperature and weather conditions. It won't warp due to moisture. It is rot resistant and requires less maintenance than other softwoods. Go see them on the web at superior-hardwoods.com or stop by their showroom in Missoula and let them guide you through the woods. Remember, on the web it's superior-hardwoods.com. Oh, you're gonna love what they do to your home. Back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast, Mitch Staley, my guest from the Department of Commerce. We're talking about the visitmt.com, visitmt.com. Now, Mitch, it seems like to me that, Montana was always this cool, mystical, magical place that people, put it on their bucket list, but a lot of people, and I think it was around COVID where this really started to happen. For those of you that are longtime listeners to this podcast, I had the people on from Brett's RV, and they talked about how COVID almost put them out of business, but then actually exploded their business when people decided, I'm getting the heck out of whatever city they were across the country and said, I'm going to Montana. That looks like a way better place if I'm going to isolate. So what at the Department of Commerce, what have you seen? I mean, am I right that this has really grown, that we're having a lot more people come to visit Montana?
You're right, and there's data around this though that kind of maybe some important context. We don't do a lot at the Department of Commerce that isn't driven by data at some level. And so we actually do have data, and this is publicly available. The Institute for Tourism Recreation Research, it's at the University of Montana. runs an annual report on the travel industry, and they recently published the 2023 report. So you're looking at a year back, right? So we don't have 2024 report yet because we're not done with it. But 2023, you saw really a year over year traveler number. It's around 12.5 million, according to ITRR visitors to the state. That was pretty actually stable. Pre-COVID, so back to 2018, if you pull up this report, you go to itrr.umt.edu, you can find this report that I'm talking about. It's a nice infographic, so it's easy to digest if you're a visual person like I am.
I'll put a link to that in the podcast description so folks can click on it.
Great. It's great information, I think, for folks to know. But you really see the visitation numbers stay pretty level. There's always ups and downs. And COVID, clearly there's a dip during COVID. Everybody's locked at home and not able to travel like normal. But there was a dip then, and then an increase back up, of course, after COVID when things started to open up again. And since then, we've really stabilized with pre-COVID travel numbers, visitor numbers. And so it stays pretty consistent. Again, I encourage you to look at that report. So we know about 12.5 million visitors came to Montana the whole year of 2023. So not just the summer or the winter, that's the entire 12-month life cycle for that data. And on the average, they spent about almost $5.5 billion in Montana. You can attribute to those 12.5 million people in our state. Again, the reason why we do the work we do is because it provides an economic impact to our communities, into our economy. And so that's significant that you do see that kind of spending happening from visitors. I do want to just talk a little bit about the point you're making, though, is that there's been an increase, whether the data shows it or not, you feel it if you're a resident. Yeah,
you do.
That you mentioned it before the break. It's a little harder to find camp spots sometimes than it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So anecdotally, you see that. And the work that we're also doing stems from some legislation that we're rolling out strategies and ways to really promote, again, the rural and undervisited areas of the state. There's the Yellowstone National Park, Glacier National Park. They're very well known, right?
Yeah.
So you won't see, of course, if you go to visitmt.com, you're going to find information about traveling to those areas, the wonderful communities in between those areas and surrounding those areas that they also rely on economic impact that comes from visitors to the parks, the big parks in Montana. But you're also seeing us focus a lot more on the rural and undervisited areas, which is why I keep talking about Makoshika, because it was so incredible to get out there and see that. And those are communities that don't feel that same pressure. They don't have over visitation happening, and they can definitely use the economic impact. And so I think Montanans are the most likely audience to go check those out for the first time. And so that's why we are making sure Montanans know, residents, you need to use visitmt.com too to inspire looking for your next vacation. You don't need to leave Montana to have an incredible experience. You can just do it in Eastern Montana. You still get your 7-hour road trip in if you go to Eastern Montana. It's a big state. Yeah. So you're still going to get your road trip, your travel time in if that's important to you. If you go and stay in Montana, and you're going to see a completely different landscape if you go from west to east or east to west. You're going to see different things that you're going to feel like you went somewhere completely different. But we are, listening to residents and making sure that the work that we do is again, a product of who we are as Montanans, and that it represents Montanans first. They're our number one audience and constituency at the Department of Commerce, our residents. And so we take that very serious. And again, we look at the data, we follow it closely. We are deploying some strategies, which you see with itineraries, to show things that are off the beaten trail. We know people are going to discover Yellowstone. They're going to discover Glacier. If we don't tell them there's other great things in the state, they might not find it. And so we want to make sure we're doing that. And that should help with some of that increased visitation in the more populated areas. If we can show people, hey, this is great, you found it, but next time you come here, check this out.
Yeah.
And that should alleviate some of that visitation going on in the more populated areas of the state.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And when you look at visitmt.com, you will get the feel that, wait a minute, they're really talking to me, and I live here, because you get that feeling because they are. I did a series last summer on state parks across Montana. And I did the same thing. I kind of purposely picked areas, and one of them was Makoshika State Park. And man, that became a very popular episode of this podcast because people went, wait a minute, I had no idea. And a lot of people started going, and these are all, Montanans that are discovering this whole thing. I'll never forget one time I'm way up in Northwest Montana and doing some podcasts with some people up there, and I'm talking about king salmon in Fort Peck Reservoir. They said, well, Montana doesn't have king salmon. Oh, yeah, we do. And they couldn't believe it. Well, the guy went out there, and he took his whole family out there. Well, he said, I had a great time catching these great big king salmon, but some of the other folks in the family, they went to the interpretive center in Fort Peck and learned all about everything from dinosaurs to how that huge dam was built back during the Depression and on and on. I mean, that museum there is just unreal. It's amazing. It's something that everyone should see. So you're exactly right. There is so much more to our state than two incredible, and I'm not dissing them, they're unbelievable, national parks in Yellowstone and Glacier. There is so much more, folks, in between that when you get going on it, I mean, this is something that you and your family could do almost every weekend during the summer using this site as your guide, and you're going to see things that are going to blow you away. You might even think you're taking a trip overseas because it's a very diverse state.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Fort Peck. I think I default to talking about Makoshika a lot because it is a great place to go visit. If you haven't seen it, you really need to. And it's really accessible. You can drive in. There's things to do to just drive into the park there. But if you want to hike, there's incredible trails to hike through Makoshika and get down into the hoodoos and down into the landscape and see it. But Fort Peck is incredible as well. That whole northeast corner of the state, we call it Missouri River Country, is incredible. There's fishing up there. But the 5 days in eastern Montana itinerary that we have at visitmt.com, it would start you off. And again, you should pick these itineraries, build them out to however works for you. But the itinerary we built out just to inspire your planning is it starts in day one in Lewistown. You go Lewistown to Zortman. Then day two, you're Havre de Malta. Day three, you're at Fort Peck. Day four, Hell Creek State Park. And then to Miles City to Makoshika. And you can pick and choose, right? Just look at these itineraries at visitmt.com. You can pick and choose how you do that. But the ideas you're going to get from those itineraries are going to be probably, if you're a resident of Southwest or Northwest or even Central Montana, things that you probably don't even know exist that are right there in your backyard. Like you said, you can basically pick up any given weekend and go experience these things. The other cool thing about all these itineraries, especially in Central and Eastern Montana, there are different trails that you can tap into. Like there's the Burger Trail, the Montana Burger Trail.
I was just gonna ask you about that. The Montana Burger Trail. I love it. Tell me about that.
If you like burgers and you like getting and experiencing a burger that you're not going to get at a chain, check out on basically all the stops on these itineraries. There's either a pie trail stop, so you can get a piece of pie, or you can grab a burger. And so there's the pie trail, the Montana Pie Trail, the Montana Burger Trail. There's trails all over the state. There's a bookstore trail. There's a chocolate trail. There's the Trail to the Stars. So when you're out in these areas, especially the rural and undervisited areas, you're going to see night skies. Like we think we have beautiful night skies anywhere in Montana. You get out into these more rural areas of the state, and those are some night skies. It's dark. And so you really have an opportunity to see the night skies. There's those trails, to tap into that will navigate you to some cool stops along the way. to get those burgers and pies. And there's several different trails like that that exist across the state that you can also tap into, and you can find that information at visitmt.com.
I'm getting real hungry as I'm looking through this. If you click on this burger trail thing, folks, this is just awesome. I love it. So again, all these different ways to do it. You can even download a pass. Don't need an app or anything like that. It's all right there, and it'll go right to you, and then you're off on your way. So, think of it this way, that, you're traveling in the motorhome or in the car or whatever. You've got several people in there. I'll guarantee you, as you're on that route, they're going to find in that 5 days in eastern Montana, every passenger is going to be satisfied with something, and with all these little offshoot tours as you go along. So you're not gonna be disappointed with this. And the great thing is, this is all provided by our great state. So this is something. How long did it take you guys to put all this together? This had to be a monumental task to put it together and be so well organized, though.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, it takes a large team to do this. The burger trail we just mentioned, for example, is something that the Southeast Montana region, as I mentioned, there are different regions in the state geographically broken up that help provide local representation. And there are partners for the Department of Commerce. The Southeast Montana region is really one of our partners, as well as the other regions in the state, where we get the local information like the Southeast Montana Burger Trail. And when you click on that from visitmt.com, you'll see it actually goes to southeastmontana.com, and they have that burger trail built out with a map and the pass you were referencing. And so it's kind of a combination of a lot of work over a lot of years to, first of all, find these locations, build the itineraries, know the routes, know the stops along the way. It's also happening at the local level, and at the local level, the information comes to us and we're able to incorporate it into our strategies and itineraries to get that information out in a unified way to travelers, to people interested in exploring Montana. So it takes a lot of time. It's been something, again, that has predated me, all of the work that's been done to get this information, to develop the facts around different stops. It doesn't happen in a year or even 2 years. It happens in many, many years. And it takes a lot of people to put that together.
Well, Mitch, this has just been great. I truly hope that you can come back and spend some more time with us. And now, for all of my podcast listeners out there, I'm going to put a little challenge to you. Noodle around on this site and send back some information of what you think and that. And if you start taking some of these trips, send me those pictures, because we'll put it up on our website, montanooutdoor.com. So, you can share and talk about, what's been going on in that. Was there anything else that you want to talk about, Mitch, before we let you go back and keep working on this great thing here?
Yeah, no, thanks, Dylan. I appreciate that challenge. I'll echo your challenge. Also go to visitmt.com, explore, also follow the social channels. You can just search in Facebook or Instagram, Pinterest as well, Visit Montana, and you can see a lot of this content on a daily basis on social media too, or just ideas are being shared of something to go check out that could inspire your trip, and likely will link you back to visitmt.com to more information to help guide that. But you should never be bored. You live in Montana. You live in the greatest state in the country. It's the most incredible landscapes, most diverse landscapes that you could possibly encounter from west to east and back. There should never be a time where you're sitting around trying to figure out what to do next weekend.
Without a doubt. And those of us that live in Montana, when you look at this site and start going around it, and then make a plan, just like it shows here, and find out how Montana, you're going to make some memories that will last forever and will probably be the greatest memories you've ever had. Now, think about that. Here are some of the greatest memories you've ever had, and it happened right out your back door, and you didn't even know it was there. So I really hope you will take me up on my challenge and Mitch's and get out there and do that. And Mitch, I hope you let us steal you away again here one of these days, and we talk some more about this, and especially as you make more changes and new events are coming up. Feel free to hop on with us and take us along with you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dale.
You bet. Mitch Staley is his name. It is visitmt.com. And from here on out, folks, I want to get those emails showing me how you, Montana. Until then, folks, thanks so much for joining us. And get out there and enjoy this great state we have, whether you live here or you're listening, way across the United States or beyond. Let's find out how you Montana, okay? Till then, you have a great time. Be safe and be good to each other. We'll see you next time here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Montana Outdoor Podcast. It has been brought to you in part by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. And by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to rmtte.com for more information. So what did you think of today's podcast? Send your questions and comments to Downrigger at montanooutdoor.com. We should be dropping a new podcast this next Saturday. Until then, we will see you soon out in Montana's great outdoors.